This evening we have a couple of community activists who will join us and explain what they're trying to accomplish by putting pressure on the Providence Police, City Hall, and the like to hire a person of color to the position of major in the police department. They say it's a very important thing for all sorts of reasons, symbolic, logistical, all of it. So we'll get to that this evening. How is everybody after the weekend? Great to have you in on this Monday evening in my state of mind or your state of mind. How is your state of mind? I'll tell you about my state of mind because we'll go right to the rundown and talk about some of the things that I am thinking about. We have a new weapon when it comes to cultural, racial, social issues in America, and it was unveiled at the University of Missouri this past weekend and manifested today with the resignation of the president of the university. Look at this headline. Yeah. The football team said they weren't going to show up. We'll give you more details on that coming up. If you follow this whole thing, earlier there was a, go to the next slide there, Steve. Well, let's see, there we go. The football players had threatened that they would not engage for practice or next week's game against BYU. And here's the football team kind of, in a picture, a tweet with one of the organizers of this whole thing. This has been quite the scene. Let me run this little news package and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
Under pressure from students, the University of Missouri's president resigned this morning.
Please use this resignation to heal, not to hate. And let's move forward together for a brighter tomorrow.
Students have been demanding Tim Wolf's resignation because they said he didn't do enough to address racially charged incidents on campus. In one event, a swastika was found in a residence hall, drawn with human feces. Students also reported having racial slurs yelled at them in at least 2 incidents. Protesters have been demanding change for months, and this weekend the football team went on strike, vowing not to play until the president stepped down.
It's really about just getting fairness, not just about Tim Wolf resigning, but it's about just getting equal rights with different things on campus.
Wolf took full responsibility for his inaction and the student frustrations that followed.
Yeah, this is obviously a systemic issue at the University of Missouri. It can't be 2 incidents and feces drawn swastika. Some idiot in the dorm room, right? There's got to be a whole lot more going on, and the lethargy that the university president probably presented was enough for all this thing to boil over. But the bigger picture here is the use of the athletic team to force the issue. That's a $1 million fine for Missouri not to play BYU coming up this Saturday. $1 million fine. It's in the contract. So if they don't show up, that's what it would have been. And the overall economic hit is much more huge than that. Now, I'm hoping that this is an anomaly. I'm hoping that universities, if they are places where there's a feeling of prejudice, that enough good work gets done on the ground before stuff like this bubbles over. But just think, this will make Black Lives Matter look like kindergarten stuff. If it starts that athletic teams at the university and professional level stop showing up to places based on what they think are racial inequities, legitimate or not. So stay tuned. If this is a one-timer, that's one thing. If this is a trend, holy cow. All right, next item here. Carson distractions. He's always talking about distractions. The headline today in the New York Times, that's an op-ed. Everyone wants to now define the truth when it comes to Ben Carson. And, everybody's got a point of view, like this one, Charles M. Blow, referring to Politico, which started this whole thing on the West Point appointment. He put in his book, 2 of them, actually, that he had been offered a scholarship to West Point, meaning Ben Carson did. There are no scholarships to West Point. There's all sorts of historical context that needs to be offered here, and I believe that Ben Carson exaggerated and or was lazy with the facts. Does that disqualify him for the presidency? No, absolutely not. But I think the way he's going about this may well. He has been defensive, and he is blaming the media, And while there are all sorts of reasons to blame the media as an institution for all sorts of things, he's got to recognize that while he has no political resume, the only thing that he'll be vetted on is his personal life, which he writes about in both of his books. He did the tour on Sunday.
There's no question I'm getting special scrutiny.
Ben Carson appeared on Face the Nation Sunday trying to iron out wrinkles in his biography, especially the assertion he received a scholarship offer from West Point.
Well, you notice I said it was offered. I didn't say I received it.
Carson said he never applied to West Point, but to Yale, where he was accepted.
I said I only had enough money to apply to one college. So how could I apply to West Point if I only applied to Yale? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, his battling on the details of his own story, which didn't pan out, is a terrible mistake. And it's either one of two things. He's got a belligerent aspect to his personality and character, or he's getting terrible political advice. Either one's a disqualifier for the presidency. And I will tell you this, I don't think that Dr. Ben Carson thought that he would be in this position. I don't think that Dr. Ben Carson saw himself as a first-place player. I don't think without Donald Trump would we have created this whole new environment of non-political players bidding for the nomination of the Republican Party. So he either better get his big game on, or he's going to be in for a rough ride and a tough slide. All right. You know, this is amazing to me. I'm reading the newspaper this weekend. The Providence Journal has this headline, "Economists React to Rhode Island Truck Toll Plan." They interviewed 3 economists, one of which is Len Ladaro, who is from URI, smart guy, has been a guest here, often on the radio at WPRO. Len has his own point of view on a mixture of diesel or gas tax with tolls to accomplish the bridge restructuring plan that we need to build our infrastructure again here. The Providence Journal went after 3 economists, one of which admitted that he hadn't even seen the research, but he had a lot to say about the concept of the plan. I cannot believe that the Providence Journal put together a story evaluating 3 different points of view on a truck toll plan and didn't ask anybody to comment on a pay-as-you-go strategy, the same one that the Republicans have been trying to advocate. There is some argument, legitimate, to say, why don't we reprioritize the money that we have in our state budget to fix bridges? But the analysis begins with new revenues. That's a runaway train of conscience that we've got to stop here in Rhode Island, the press included. All right, this is worrisome if you have a hope that the Paw Sox will stay in Pawtucket. Headline in the Providence Journal, Worcester Group wants Paw Sox Stadium as crowning jewel. So now they're scheming. I know Springfield's scheming. Fall River thinks it's Rhode Island and says we can take them. You've got all of these Massachusetts towns now trying to get this whole thing done. In the meantime, today, the new management was announced at the Paw Sox, and it has this Dr. Charles Steinberg being named as the new boss. I will tell you that this is interesting to me because this is the guy that executed and ran the listening tour. You know what the listening tour is? The listening tour from one senior setter in town hall to the next, and they hardly listened. I have never seen such a combination of screw-ups between a private industry ownership/management group and a void of leadership in government like I've seen combined in this project of the Paw Sox. So they assured everybody today that they'll be around for 2 years. Well, no kidding. It takes time to build a stadium somewhere else. Where's the leadership? And where's the vision for Rhode Island? It's not dead yet, but feels like it. And I don't know what these people are thinking about. Massachusetts is thinking about adding fantasy football into their lottery pool. Yeah, look at this. Come on, man. Really? Now look, I'm a fantasy football player. I got hammered this past weekend. Oh, my goodness. I'm 4-5 on the year. Yeah, we put a couple of bucks into the pool and we play amongst ourselves. This I have not done yet. The DraftKings thing, there's 2 competing big-time pools out there. You know, my instinct tells me I have no allegations to offer. and I'd like to make a cool million on a couple lucky picks on players and a roster, but if Massachusetts is working on this thing, by the time they're done with all their diligence, hopefully the NFL will have simmered all of this fantasy football betting, because the kind of money that they're talking about, in my opinion, in my projection, can't help but corrupt the NFL. So I don't know what they're thinking about that. Your state of mind, I'd like to know what you're thinking. Just give us a ring, 228-1886, state of mind at myiritv.com, tweet or Facebook post. We're going to hustle to a break and come back and meet the folks that want to say we need a major of color in the Providence Police Department. Stay with us. This is an important conversation. The headline caught my attention last week. We talked about it at length on the radio. I think that when calls like this are made from the community, you need to pay attention. If you want some background, watch this piece.
For 3 hours, dozens, mostly silent, stood at Providence City Hall steps to protest.
We live in a city with black people in it, so why wouldn't we have proper representation on the police force?
We're just a better society when we're representative of the society we live in.
We have candidates that would be more than qualified to do the job.
NAACP Executive Board member Pilar McLeod says her group, along with community leaders, met with Mayor Jorge Elorza 3 times since August. They want the mayor to appoint a black police major, bringing the total numbers of majors to 4. Mayor Jorge Elorza released a statement saying the police department should reflect the diverse community it serves, but did not address whether or not he plans to consider appointing a black major.
We just know that with the trying times that are going on throughout the nation, we know having a major of color, someone with some power, someone that can give these kids something to look forward to.
Providence police confirmed that there have been 2 black majors within the last 2 decades.
It matters that these folks have turned out, and it matters that we stand with them.
We're going to keep on pushing until we get a black major appointed to the Providence Police.
You're like the star with the drums.
Oh, the drums are star, man. I'm just there with it.
Is that a professional or a hobby thing? Or
No, I'm part of a Native American drum group, Eastern Medicine Singers. So
yeah?
That's just a hand drum, though. We bring the hand drum out.
Sweet. Ray, welcome to the show. Nice to have you. Raymond Watson is from the Mount Hope Neighborhood Association. Lisa Scorpio dialed my radio show last week, weekdays noon and 3 on WPRO, and advanced the argument, and we invited her in. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're an employee of the city, right? You work in the school department?
Yes.
You getting any aggravation for what you're doing here?
No.
You're allowed to exercise your First Amendment rights and still have a public job?
I am.
Yeah, good for you.
Thank you.
Well, there's too many people that are afraid to speak their mind on other stuff, you know, versus the job that they've got. Who wants to lay it out? You want to lay it out? Give me the nuts and bolts of what the request is.
Sure. Well, I mean, we live in a city where the majority of the population are people of color, Latinos and blacks and Asians. So we just don't understand why the command staff doesn't reflect that, especially with the ongoing conversation that we've been hearing from law enforcement about we need to have better relationships with the community. So now the community says, okay, you want better relationships with us, here's one way you can do it, and the response is, well, no, we're not going to do it that way. So to me, I don't understand what the pushback is. Lisa can talk to a number of former individuals who have skipped ranks and been appointed to this same position. It's happened numerous times, predominantly with individuals of European descent. We really just don't understand what the big issue is.
There is one, Major Colon is Latino.
Yes.
And people may not know this, but the Latino population is the largest minority population in the community.
Absolutely.
He skipped ranks.
Just an FYI. He did.
Yes, he did.
From what to what?
I don't know, but I know he skipped ranks. I have a list of people who skipped ranks. He's one of them.
Okay, so the skipped rank thing is important, right? Because
Because
right
that's what
now
they're saying.
there are no African American police officers over the rank of sergeant,
That's
correct? And if you've done your math, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, major. And so you think that there's an argument to be made to pull, and you've named on the radio show a couple of potential professional.
I have 6 names right here, Dan, of white police officers that skipped rank. There's a guy, Rosenwig. He was a detective in New York. He came to Rhode Island and became a commander. He wasn't even a major.
He was an outside hire.
He was an outside hire.
Right.
But he skipped ranks, though. He was a detective in New York and became a commander, which is a step above major in Providence. Now,
that was the former police chief that made that move.
Esserman, yes.
Correct.
And I have 6 other names of officers that all skipped ranks, and there was no big outcry that they weren't qualified or that they didn't pass the correct tests. It seems like whenever it's a black officer, they're automatically assumed not to be qualified.
And can I speak to that, Dan? We haven't even thrown names out of the candidates that we're speaking of, and automatically it's assumed that they're not qualified, that they're not going through the proper processes, that they haven't earned it. And we haven't even shared the names, so...
Well, Lisa shared 2 last week.
Okay,
until I shared 3,
before
but
that,
before
because this has been going on for a
Yeah.
while.
But you've been sharing them privately,
Sure.
correct?
Yeah.
Sure.
In meetings with the city and, and the administration.
Yes. But your show was the first time we publicly announced that there's 3 candidates.
What was the pushback on that? Anything?
No. They knew I was going to do it.
Do those
the committee
officers
said
that you
to me
named, and I won't
could
name
give
them here
no.
because I don't want to complicate it,
No.
but were they happy that you had done that? Did you talk with them about having done that?
The committee had spoken to them and said we're gonna name you, and they knew it, and they knew that once we said their names, there would be pushback and problems in the police department. Now they're not going to come and tell us, oh, this guy said this and this happened, because they're professionals.
There you go.
But I'm sure I've had a few phone calls from police officers because we're very friendly. We're pro-police. We just want what's fair. And I've had calls from police officers saying, well, I had to take the tests and I had to do this and I had to do that. So there's quite a bit of struggle there within the department. And the chief and the commissioner seem to think that the 30 black officers in that 420 command, that those 30 black officers are happy. Well, they're not. Many of them have talked about things that are happening and race relations and things.
Well, why don't they step up?
Because you're working in an environment where that's not necessarily celebrated or encouraged. And that's a very difficult position to be in, to have to go to a call with people that might be upset at you because you said something that they didn't like, or they think you're trying to get something unfair. That's a difficult position to be in.
So it seems to me, though, that a block of officers, if there was a majority of the black minority police officers
Sure.
who said en masse, without personalizing it, listen,
Sure.
listen, we want one of us to be a representative on the command staff, that would have a lot
Well,
of
can I
impact.
push back on that a little bit?
Sure.
So I live in the city. I'm there all the time. I'm there when I'm working. I'm there when I'm just living. I don't necessarily think that my opinion as a resident, as a taxpayer of the city, is below that of a Providence police officer. I look at it like, and I think this is the way we should look at it, these are employees of the city. They work for the betterment of the city. We should be considered the clients of the city. You work for us. So I'm unaware of any business structure where when clients say, this is what we think would be in the best interest of helping our business relationship, the employees say, well, no, we're not going to do that, and expect that there's going to be a continued or a better relationship between them and the community. I'm stuck on this, we want better relationships with the community, but then when we give a strategy, well, no, we're not going to do that. That's where I'm stuck at.
Good place to take a pause. When we come back, we'll talk about whether the strategy should demand immediate reaction or a system to guarantee a better long-term future. Stay with us. Welcome back in, my folks from the Black Major movement. Listen, they want to see representation of the city in. This is not. If I'm the sitting mayor, this is not something I quarrel with. This is something I say, guys. Thanks for raising the point. Mm-hmm. He put out the statement, said, we should have a reflection, but there's no specificity. This calls for a plan. Now, reportedly, they'd like to rework some of the union deal to make promotions a little bit more flexible and not just geared to testing and some of the program that's in place right now. If I said to you, give me 2 years, I gotta work this thing out, you'd say what?
I'd say, no, let's do this now and then let's work on that plan over the next 2 years with that individual you put in office. That's what I'd say. It doesn't have to be one or the other. We can do both.
The mayor can do this. Other mayors have done it. Other mayors have appointed black majors. They've appointed white majors. They've appointed Spanish majors. We're not asking Mayor Elorza to do anything different than anyone else has done.
Ms. Nancy did it, didn't he?
And so did
majors,
Mayor Cicilline.
So there's a precedent.
We're not asking him to set precedent. And don't forget, the police are always saying the biggest factor in solving crime is good community relations. Well, we want this major in our community, and we will work with it. We'll work with any major, but you know, he's going to be culturally sensitive. He's going to understand the needs of the community. People aren't going to be afraid of him.
Well, the dynamics and the interesting delicacies of this, or delicateness, I should say, not delicacies, the delicateness of this. So, you know, it depends on what major you wear. I mean, some majors are paper pushers and are going to have very little to do with being in the community. So you've got to find somebody who's actually going to be responsible for industry, community policing.
That's what we want.
Absolutely.
That's what we want. Jump out, boys.
And then you've got that unless and until, if I'm the mayor, I say, listen, give me your candidates. And then I would ask my administrative staff to really give me a once-over on the resumes and qualifications of these guys. The last thing you want to do is put somebody in there for the sake of the color of their skin if they're not qualified.
We agree with you 200%, Dan. And once again, that's my concern. Without anyone knowing who the candidates were, there was already pushback. Well, so my thing is, if the pushback is not simply because we're suggesting a black major,
pushback
what is
was in
the
what
pushback?
form? Because why would anybody in public life today, in the city, push back on the concept of having an African American as a major in
That's the question I would like to know.
But I'm not sensing that's what they're saying. I'm sensing that they're saying we don't want to improperly push a system for the sake of having someone of color in the major's position.
They improperly push Europeans and white police officers in the system if they want to.
So is this okay? So you're suggesting that the system has been politicized in the past.
That's right.
That this is a legitimate political request.
Yes.
And
it's geared towards language they've already been speaking. This is language that's been coming from them. Like Lisa just gave the quote. A good relationship with the community is the most important element to solving crime. I work with the police all the time. Not just about we want a black major, police accountability, setting up meetings for community members to come out and share their concerns with law enforcement so that there's a stronger relationship. So to me, this isn't just about one black major. This is about ongoing work that we've been doing, and this is another step in the process to build that. I really don't understand what the pushback is.
Is the work not able to be done without somebody in the command staff?
The work is harder, and why are we in the business of making the work harder?
Why are we gonna ask young people to apply and make it the most diverse? Because all we hear about this is the most diverse academy they've had. Well, okay, you go to that academy, but after sergeant, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't. And why isn't the mayor more concerned about his black constituents than his white police officers who live in other cities? Because we're the voters and we're the taxpayers.
Dan, that's another issue too. And when I put on the thing, I asked to put Ray Watson, resident city of Providence, because I don't care what your skin tone is. Don't come from outside of the city into the city dictating to me about what's in the best interest of the other people that I live in the city with. If someone from the city was pushing back saying this isn't, then I'm willing to entertain that. But when people who don't live in the city, who don't deal with the issues that we deal with, try to instruct us in how to best deal, I got a problem with that, Dan.
All right. Would you come on the radio tomorrow or the next day to talk about it?
Absolutely.
All right. I'll find out when I can schedule them because we're out of time. One more thing and we come back. Stay with us. Look, I think the arguments that our two guests made tonight are compelling, but there's logistics involved. Here's what I'm going to do. I think we've got them scheduled on the radio sometime between noon and 3 on Wednesday on WPRO, and then I might try to broaden this conversation out a little bit later this week here on the television. Okay? Tomorrow, the chairperson of the 38 Studios House Oversight, State Representative Karen Macbeth, right here. Okay? And of course, we'll see you on the air tomorrow at noon on WPRO. Thanks. Have a great night. Good night.